event. Now, I got to say why I am here. As mayor, perhaps as a business advisor, it's important to know what's happening in the mayor of Seattle. So I'm responsible for about 14,000 employees. We have a $7 billion budget. We are looked at throughout this country for leadership. We are the fastest growing big city in the country. We are per capita in the top 5, one of the wealthiest cities in this country. We are the leaders in innovation and biotech and high tech and marine and trade, and you know the APEX, which is the Asian Pacific Economic Cooperation, was just held here for the last 3 weeks, where the 21 largest Asian economies in the world are meeting here. We're doing some great things here in Seattle, but the fact is, in 2020, the Seattle Times wrote an article that said the percentage of black residents in Seattle, is at its lowest point in 50 years. In 2018, there were 51,000 African Americans. Now what happened, this is unchanged from 2010, so it stayed the same, but the population ballooned by more than 130,000 people to 750,000. So our number stayed the same, city went up. For the first time, we're about 6.8% in the black community here in Seattle. For the first time, it's dipped below the 7% since the 1960s. Now that excludes people like me, and I'm not being funny when I say this, people like me who are biracial. It identifies those who identify as being African American solely. Seattle is described as, in the data, as being the 5th whitest major city, but still the most rapidly growing city. The Central District, when I grew up as a kid, did any of you grow up in the Central District as a kid in the 70s? You see some hands. Okay, very good. I know you did. So, when we grew up, it was 75% African American. Today it's 15%. And nearly 73% of households headed by black folk in Seattle now, 73%, are renting. Now, what's interesting around the county, from 2010 to 2018, the black population in the country increased by 50% outside of Seattle, now standing over 100,000. And I'm leading with data for you to understand what's happening in this city and in this county as it relates to your business. I'm going to tie it all together. The fact of the matter is that there is a sea of money around us, okay? There's wealth all around us. And I continue to think, particularly as those who own black businesses, that you've all heard the story about the elephant that's tethered, right? The elephant that was trained as small with the leg tethered to a chain, and they couldn't move. And then as the elephant grows older, you've all heard the story. The elephant grows older. The elephant's so mighty it could pull the chain up. The elephant psychologically is handicapped. Now, one of the things that my wife and I that has helped us generate wealth, in addition to our hard work and going to the University of Washington and using these tools that we learned here. In addition to that, her parents and my parents were homeowners. Your dad, I think, was on the GI Bill. Mine could have been, I don't know. I know he borrowed money from my grandmother. I don't know how they piecemealed that together to buy a house in the Central District. And that generational wealth is passed down to Joanna and myself, and we found a way to parlay it through other methods. But that becomes critical importance when I just cited to you that nearly 73% of households are headed by black folks who are now renting, okay? Now, we can talk about the wealth gap. There's so much data out there right now. We can talk about institutional racism, generational wealth, the lack thereof. We could talk about the remnants of slavery. We could talk about reparation. We could talk about the generation. We could talk about the war on drugs. All of the things we've been through in this country since day one. But when I talked about the elephant being tethered, hear me out, and I hope I don't offend anyone. I don't really care, because I'm just speaking truth to power when I say this. That I'm going to ask you, what would you do with your business if you were not black? Okay, because I believe that racism is real. And I believe subconsciously, I'm a firm believer in affirmations and subconscious messages to myself, that if I believe that I'm hamstrung, right, then I start acting like I'm hamstrung. We all know that there are forces against us. But the question becomes, how do we harness our resources, indeed our mind, to break through that cycle of believing that we are failing when the data is suggesting that, and say that we will accomplish what we're doing. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. The first thing is, are you the best at what you do? When I competed for 15 against 14 other people, when I competed, I've been elected in Seattle 4 times. I unashamedly said, I'm the best at what I do. When I was a lawyer, I'm the best at what I do. And you can't just say that, you have to put in the hard work. So I always ask you that, are you the best at what you do? Do you believe that? Are you that competitive? And I got to tell you, right now, we are walking around with the most powerful weapon on earth right now. Right now, with ChatGPT as well and with AI, you can say, I make sweet potato pies. Draft me a 10-page business proposal on selling, making, and manufacturing and marketing sweet potato pies. Now you can go even further, because when I first wrote a business plan in the 1980s, and I had to get out all these books and figure it out, and I had to hire an accountant to do my projections. I think I can sell about $400,000 a year. Produce 10-year projections on my costs and my expenses and my marketing strategies to do $750,000 a year. Produce that business plan. Done. Right now, we have so many tools for us to be the best. Where is there opportunity right now? If I'm selling landline phones and I'm the best, there's no market for landline phones, right? We can go through a fax machine. I'm the best fax machine seller in the country. They're not buying fax machines right now. So what you have to do is you have to see opportunities and you have to research it. I'll give you a few examples. You know, I'm gonna try to roll through this because I want to do the Q&A with my lovely wife, but I didn't understand the format before, because I thought I was gonna have a little more time to do this. So I'm gonna keep rocking and rolling. I apologize, Joanne. Apologize for my bad joke about being, you know, we've been together a long time, man. And let me tell you, we went to school here together. When I told that joke about being late, I got that Joanne look. I had just thrown me off. Okay, I apologize in front of everyone for that bad joke. You were ready, I was late. Okay. I married a sister from D.C. That's what I did. Okay. When I was young, I was young once, believe it or not. In the 1980s, the energy code changed. And I was coming out of law school, and insulated glass was not a thing. It was just a single pane glass. So I learned everything about how to hermetically seal a glass. There was what's called a polysulfide sealant. There was what's called a hot melt butyl machine, and there's deskins in the middle. I said, I'm going to be a master at this because everyone's going to change the code. So I ended up buying a glass company to make windows. And then I looked at the scrap, and we had all these aluminum. They're called extrusions, aluminum extrusions. And I says, man, we're throwing all this stuff away. Let's start making some window frames, because a glass frame for a picture is nothing but a small window. So we took the surplus, just like today's soup. If you're a restaurant, right? Today's soup was yesterday's scraps, right? So I said, let's take these scraps and let's do some things. And so we did quite well. I ended up buying the building, the machinery, and I borrowed an SBA loan, and that's when I saw an opportunity. When the internet was developed, Joanne and I were lucky to work in the internet when it was literally, it was being discovered. And we're talking about it. And I told Joanne one day, I said, you know what people are going to use this internet for? She says, what, honey? I said, for hooking up. She says, what? No, people are going to try to meet each other. I said, I was a lawyer for a church. And I said, people go to these church conferences and they're praising the Lord and everything. I said, they're also looking for maybe someone that's equally yoked. And I said, so I hired some developers and I said, let's look at the dating, the matchmaking world. And I said, let's develop code to be able to do that. When our kids were young, I'm not very good with my hands in terms of being able to put together cribs and bikes and stuff like that. And I says, man, I would pay someone to do this kind of work. And then it occurred to me, every time I'd go into Sears or someone like that, I don't think Sears is even around here, but there was a Sears then. And I said, hey, can I pay someone to install this for me? And then there was a dishwasher. And I said, man, bring this dishwasher. You got to install it yourself. And I can't install this dishwasher. I have to hire a plumber to get it. So I started thinking, there might be a market to deliver something. So I wrote up a business plan, and I pitched it to Sears. And I said it was called Delivery Plus. And I didn't have to sell anything. They would sell Delivery Plus, which was delivery and installation. They would give me the order, and I had a team of plumbers that were much smarter than me, and they would deliver the stuff, and they would install it, and I'd make money on top of what we charged. They would make my money. They would make their labor fees that I'd pay them, and life was good. I can do this all day to tell you about business opportunities that I sought out to capitalize on. The last one I'm going to share, which is a weird one, because I told some young friends that wanted to just make money on their own. I said, I'll tell you something. I said, my wife and I, we have a hot tub, and we've had homes, we've had swimming pools in our life. And I said, it's not hard to chemicalize the pools and get everything right. That's not a hard thing to do. But many people pay $300, $400, $450 a month just to have them put the chemicals in, if you don't do that, you can get Pseudomonas, and it's a bad thing. And so I said, well, I have the time to do all these sampling and all this other stuff, but you can learn how to do that. So I wanted to find someone to be able to do that, and I went down to I'll keep brand names out. I went out to a major place that does this. They said they're not taking any more customers. I talked to a neighbor. They said they're not taking any more customers. I says, man, these guys are charging $350, $400 a month. So the one dude that I did find, I said, well, how much do you make a year? I wanted to know. He said he's clocking about $250,000, $300,000 profit every year. So I talked to another friend that was doing my landscaping, helping me with some landscaping, and says, you need to think about this business. I said, right now everyone's buying these hot tubs, and I said, and no one can find places they don't want to contract Pseudomonas. There's opportunities all around you, and if you are struggling in your business, you have to first ask yourself, number one, am I the best? But number two, am I meeting a market need? And number three, you have to read emerging trends, read future trends, know where the world is going. Right now, I'll tell you what my problem is as mayor, what my challenge is as mayor. Is number one, I want us to be the safest city in this country. That's what I want. I want your baby safe. I want your grandparents safe. I want to treat people out there that are drug addicted. I want them to have self-esteem. I want them to feel good about themselves. So if you come to me and tell me that you want to do something else, you need to know what I'm trying to align myself with, what I'm trying to do. Now, I'm going to close by this, and we're going to do some Q&A. When it looks to black businesses, the first thing that I said is, what's the ecosystem? There are many organizations right now that are put on earth, such as the University of Washington, Michael Michaud's group, the Consulting Center. Seattle University is doing some work over there. Tabor 100 is doing some work over here. The Northwest Business Supplier Council, I might have slaughtered them, doing some work. And this is all great work. But they're in silos. My job is to pull that all together. So what we're doing in Seattle, as one example, is when I look at entities that are competing in an RFP, we put out $2 million here and we say, go at it, and groups are competing. I do not want to do that anymore. I want to be able to quarterback and coordinate the ecosystem such that you're the beneficiary of that. And if one of these groups are doing strategic marketing, one is doing HR planning, one is doing social media, or they're all doing the same things, perhaps you now have a choice. You're going to Costco. To go to Costco, right? There's already assumed quality on the shelf, but you don't want a whole lot of selection. So I'm asking them to coordinate what works for you. Perhaps they have a competency in social media, and you need to know how to master that. What I'm suggesting also is, who is your customer base? You have to know your customer base better than anyone. The fact is, I gave you the number on our African-American population. So there's no way to run a successful business unless your customer base is truly phenomenal. And how are you building your customer base? Relationship capital becomes critical. Now, most of you, I don't want a hand to go up. I don't want a hand to go up. But some of you I know, and you've been active. I've won 4 campaigns in Seattle. Some of you I don't know, from the man on the moon. Why is that? I'm the second black mayor in this city. I told you I control a $7 billion budget. The first person of Asian descent in this city. And you know what? What I see everywhere I go, hey, brother, I got to get on your calendar. Well, who are you? I'm out here trying to fight for our community. I'm trying to fight against racism. Who are you? Because you saw me and my wife and my kids and people I went to Garfield with out here at supermarkets trying to register people to vote and to support what we're trying to do. Right now, I texted the, you got my good side, brother? Okay. I texted a certain candidate because this person may likely be the governor. And I'm saying this is what I'm trying to, how I'm trying to deal with. There's city council races right now. There's an attorney general race going on right now. You have to be politically involved because that's where the relevance come in. These policies, these governmental policies are governing the world. Policies quiet. Thank you, Nick. You've been doing this work. When I first decided to run for office, I went to this, brother. That was 2007. So we have to be politically active. We have to be involved. It's not that I need you, but you need to be part of the system, relationship capital. And there is a war going on, and we cannot lose this war. And the war now is as new levels of wealth are being created. There's a subclass of wealth, and there's a subclass of poverty. My mom and dad will be on the subclass of poverty, and they were good people. They met when they were 14, married their whole life, just working folks. But the subclass of poverty is where our kids can be if we don't get politically active. This is not a pitch for me. This is a pitch for our community. So I'm going to stop there because I feel my veins getting a little. I do want to pitch one other thing, though, we're doing the Seattle Restored program because I'm very intentional about trying to build up communities. Here's an opportunity, and there's probably some recipients here, where I see plywood downtown, that is my enemy. So I'm looking for, did I apologize for my wife about the late joke, by the way, before she comes up here? Oh, I did, okay. Good. All right, I cleaned it up, thanks, dear. That what we are intentional about doing is making sure we can get Black-owned businesses in these small shops to show your goods and services. I'll be candid with you. This gravy train is not going to last forever. I'm trying to get out of the COVID recovery, and I'm trying to make sure that we revitalize downtown and trying to give you a start, because I honestly believe that if you just get sometimes your foot in the door, you know, subsidized rent, free rent, whatever we have to do, marketing resources from Mike's group, strategic planning from Seattle U, Tabor pulling together vendors, relationship capital, you're connected, you're the best at what you do, you know how to use AI, you know how to be delightful, by the way. Be delightful. You know, Island of Soul, Theo Martin, some of you know him. He is successful not only because the food is great, but he is always delightful. Right? I get people all the time that says, hey, man, can you hook a brother up? Like, well, what are you talking about, man? What's going on? You know, well, I do this, I do that, and, you know, I'm just not getting a fair shake. Oh, brother, I didn't mean to. You know, I'm like, okay, now what do you do again? Now, who are you again? First of all, I don't know him. I mean, I'm telling you, you can't make this stuff up. I travel around the security, and they see people coming up to you. Hey, man, I got to get with you. Well, okay, I'm at the airport. I just got to, hey, man, can I get on your schedule? Whoa, man. You know, I'm a little busy. I say, your business, you are the face, the culture, the soul of your business. Be delightful. And I'm going to close with this to talk to my lovely wife, because you talk about a master in business. One of the many reasons I fell in love with her is because I was her lawyer. And that was one of those things in the workplace years ago. We went to school and we were working. But I saw her masterfully go through a profit and loss statement and balance sheets. And she was in charge of a multi-$100-million revenue stream, and I was the legal counsel. And I'd watch her work with her team and go over projections and costs and allocations. And I said, now that's someone I could build a life with. How she thought. So I closed. I introduced my wife, Joanne Harrell, a little bit of her background. She went here.